All right, every engine has a story, and I wanted to go over a few things. Tell you guys how I find good engines used, or even junkyard engines that are good. So this engine right here was on Craigslist. It's a 454. It's actually 60 over, so it's a 468. And the guy advertised it as a 496. And I drove about 3.5 hours to look at this engine. He had the Edelbrock heads, the RPM big block heads, and they were bagged with tags, and he had just gotten them back from the machine shop, had them checked and freshened up, and it had a Howard's roller cam, hydraulic roller cam. It was all disassembled, by the way, so that's how I was able to see all this stuff. And what happened to this engine is it had Summit roller, hydraulic lifters, and they failed. One of the little axle that holds the wheel into the lifter body, the axle started to walk out of the lifter, and it killed the engine. So he had a new lifter, or pair of lifters, because on a roller they got the link bar, and he was going to put it back together, and then he decided to I think he bought like a Shafroth engine or something, a 540, and it was in an old El Camino. And so that's what he did. He ended up putting that in and just wanted to get rid of this engine. Anyway, he was asking a decent price for it if it was a 496. And I got there and started looking at stuff, and the short block was still assembled. And it had stock rods, which was kind of a red flag, because if you buy a stroker kit, you're going to get aftermarket rods. It's 100%. And then I noticed that the crank said GM. It still had GM cast into the crank. And then I thought, okay, there's no Generation 4 or two-piece rear main big block Chevy that ever came as a 496 or a stroker. So here's a bare block, and the other dead giveaway is if it was a Generation 5 big block, it would have a cover plate. There'd be like an aluminum plate, big cover plate bolted onto the back, and then the rear main seal actually presses into that cover plate. So here's what it looks like. You can see the parting line of the main cap. This is the actual rear main. This is half of it still in there. The other half is missing. So that's where you get the two-piece rear main from. So it's a two-piece rear main seal big block with a stock crank and stock rods. And I'm like, dude, this is not a 496. This is a 454. And then he's like, oh, whatever. I don't know if he knew or if he was just trying to pull a fast one on me. But you do kind of have to know what you're looking at so you don't get screwed buying a used engine. So I realized what I was looking at was a stock 454 bottom end. So this one's got the flex plate or flywheel on it still, so you can't see. But let's go over real quick what a Generation 4 block is and how it's easy to spot them. Two-piece rear main seal has this weird, very uneven, unique looking crank flange. In other words, this is not round at all. It's this crazy shape. So obviously you couldn't slip a one-piece rear main seal over the back of this crankshaft. So this is a just super easy way to spot a two-piece rear main seal engine, or a Generation 4 big block, which is the first generation. Unless you want to go back to 409 or whatever, I guess technically. But these are kind of the 1965 and newer. They were all Generation 4 or Gen 4, and they all had two-piece rear main seals. But looking at the heads, the hydraulic roller cam, he had everything. He had the complete engine. Like I said, the top end was off. The pan was off, so I could see everything. It had Keith Black pistons in it. And honestly, it was a nice engine. By the time you added up all the parts, it had the Edelbrock air gap intake on it. The heads alone were almost worth what I paid for the engine. It had, nice timing components. And so I'm like, yeah, we're not buying this engine. And we started to walk away, and the guy was like, oh, wait. He chased us down in the driveway. And he said, well, what would you give me for it? And I said, I really don't want it. I thought I was buying a 496. Well, anyway, I ended up giving him 2,500 bucks for the whole thing, which I thought was a good deal for all the parts that were there, and especially the heads, which, by the way, also had nice roller rockers on them. And all these components individually are very expensive. So I brought this thing home. I took it completely apart the rest of the way, just the short block. And then, and I didn't use the lifters from Summit. I got the Howards, and I'll post a picture of the part number, the box. But they're the max effort hydraulic rollers. So they have the lightened lifter body. And I put this engine in my old race car, circle track, little quarter mile oval paved, and beat the ever living you know what out of this thing. And it has been an amazing power plant. So that's how I kind of find decent stuff that's kind of higher end for a fraction of what it would cost you to just piece it all back together new. But you do have to be careful, and you got to kind of know what you're looking at so you don't get taken advantage of, because like I said, this thing was supposed to be a 496, and I caught the GM casting on the crank and a part number on the crank and the stock rods, and I was like, yeah, this is not a stroker. This is a stock bottom end. Anyway, I would not hesitate to drop this engine into any street car and run this thing. It made great horsepower. If I had to guess, I'd say it makes at least 550. It's got a pretty thumping aggressive cam in it, and it is a hydraulic roller. In the circle track car, it was 6,500 on the straightaways, and it got there instantly. It had a ton of power. It ran good. So that's a good way to find more than your budget will allow, I guess, to run more than what you thought you could on your street build, is find it used. But we also have a joke. You don't want to buy a Craigslist rebearing. That's what we call most of these engines. They're just garbage. Somebody gets an engine and they paint it up all shiny and nice, and then you end up buying it and you take it apart and it's a 100,000 mile engine. It's all gummed up with sludge, and it's just a piece of junk. But this one was apart enough that I could see what I was buying, and it turned out to be a great deal, and it's still a very nice turnkey for whatever future project. My name is not Ron, but I approve this message.